Are you searching for a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the world? Do you yearn for more balance, more peace, and purpose in your life? Well, look no further than the Intuitive Revolution podcast, your trusted source for holistic insights and intuitive guidance. I'm your host, Alicia Farricielli, and I am ready to take you on a journey to inner peace and balanced well-being. Welcome back to the Intuitive Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Farricielli, and today I have Betty Kovacs with us, who's going to share some intuitive guidance, how to survive your consciousness, some afterlife experiences, and all kinds of really awesome things that we need to know about. So welcome to the show, Betty.
Thank you so much.
Tell us a little bit, how did you get into doing, I know you have an extreme background of teaching literature and writing. How did you get into doing the work you're doing now?
Well, I also taught mythology and symbolic language. So that is part of literature, but it's a very specialized part because we studied the myths of the Western world mainly, and fairy tales, which are highly symbolic. They're highly symbolic and intuitive. They spark and ignite the intuition. All symbolic works do. So I taught that, and it was during the late 60s, and the students were so open and ready for that kind of thing. So I was young, they were young, although I did have older students. And so we were all discovering this together, and it was very exciting.
So guide us along after what happened after you were teaching that. You get into more of a higher consciousness teachings.
Well, the mythology is always about our development. It's a development of intuition, of various kinds of sensitivities, of being open to the world around us so that we can receive everything that nature is offering us. All of the synchronistic events, the symbols in nature, and also coming from the other world. So mythology is precisely about that, of how do we trigger higher consciousness. And I had always been interested in that even before I started teaching. That's why I got into teaching what I did. And also because there was not much else to go into.
So tell us what topical stories do you love that brings into you think that are
What
need
kind
to know
of
about?
what kind
Stories ones do you particularly think people need to dive into?
Well, I went when I was in college and I was trying to decide on a major. I was very interested in human behavior, but I knew I didn't want psychology because that was too left brain at the time, especially. And so I decided on literature because literature is the stories about our lives, the situations we get into, and how we respond to them. And so it was just wonderful teaching all of these many stories of many situations from many different cultures. So all of them really had to do with our development. I mean, literature, we could look at it this way. When society is going in one direction, the arts, and in this case, literature, is always the one that in its truest form, it counteracts the wrong directions of society, you might say. So we were always studying, of course, people who were in that society, in this society, and being confronted with the problems that it gives us. And wait a minute, how do we confront it? There are other ways. So those writing, I think the great artists knew that they had to write from a much higher level of understanding the world. So there were many stories that we thought about and concentrated on because it was showing a different way of life.
It seems like a lot
Other
of the
possibilities.
Yeah. Like a lot of the stories have still the same message and aligned with stories today. It's like the messages really don't go away, but maybe the context of the societies are living in. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not sure I understand to not go necessarily along with the norms of society, or what?
Kind of the higher lessons that people need to learn throughout the stories. It seems like we're still trying to repeat those higher lessons that we still need to learn over and over
Always.
again. Yeah.
Always. And especially in the Western world, because in the Western world from about 621 BCE, before that, there was Solomon's Temple, and it was a shaman mystic way of life. So they really nurtured intuition, feeling, and heart consciousness. They knew that the heart was an organ of the brain. And we forgot that until the 20th century, and heart math, one can go there, heartmath.org, and see that they have done many scientific studies. We now know that the heart is the fifth brain component. So what the artists, the mystics, the shamans, were always trying to get us to realize is that we have a left brain, yes, in which we're logical and rational. We think things through. It's wonderful, it's beautiful, but it's a monster if it's separated from the right brain, which is connected to the heart and higher consciousness. The right brain opens us to the cosmic consciousness, to the love at the center of all consciousness in the world and in the cosmos. The heart is that connection. The Sufi mystics said the heart is the organ of soul. And intuition, they said, is that when you simply allow information to come through the heart and it immediately comes into the brain, that's intuition. It skips the left brain. It doesn't have to go there. On many occasions, it just comes through and you know it. But the left brain says, wait a minute, let me calculate and go through this, but intuition comes from that heart consciousness that's in touch with universal consciousness or cosmic consciousness, and we know it. I mean, we just say, well, I just know this, I just know this. Well, how? Well, I just know it. Well, the left brain could get in charge and see what it could do, but the left brain does not have the capacity to see or understand meaning or purpose or context. So in the West, unfortunately, the left brain has dominated. And I talk about this in Merchants of Light, how various historical times of censorship and repression actually determined that the left brain was the only part of our brain that was honored. And so we've created a kind of monstrous left brain society, but we're coming back now. This is the fifth Renaissance. We're coming back. We're beginning to say, oh, wait a minute.
I love that you brought that back because I feel like in typical Western society is we're like, everything's falling apart. Everything's going because our logical left brains can't rationalize the things that are going on. So it's almost like they're just freaking out, but it's kind of the people who are more living in their heart space are bringing the light to the world. They're understanding what's going on.
Absolutely. And I would like to say, I mean, one advantage of being old is that I was in high school in the 50s. There was no discussion of anything like this. And then into the early 60s in college, no discussion of anything like this. And so people began to open up in the 60s, late 60s, 70s. But today, what is going on is absolutely phenomenal. It is a revolution. It is a renaissance. And I think we need to know that this is the fifth one. This has come up again and again in Western culture because the underground consciousness, the heart consciousness, always knew what you're doing is going to destroy us. And they keep trying to emerge into society, and they did. And those are the great periods of culture in Western society. But they were always censored and beaten down, destroyed, actually murdered in some cases. So here we are back again. And yes, I think the heart and intuition, everything that has been lacking, that the left brain couldn't do, we are trying to bring back in.
It's just I think it's such an exciting time in our life and culture here. And I feel like their souls chose to come here this time to start bringing back, no matter age, generations that you've been through. I think it's just, we're here for a purpose to
I do
consciousness
too.
back.
And there are people who have had visions that and I too have, my husband did, and so many, that there are several waves that are coming in because we've known for a long time that the Western world and now the planet is in danger with this left brain cutoff from the right brain and the heart and higher organs in the brain of consciousness. So there have been waves coming in. So one person described it as 5 waves. And, so you have to kind of prepare and open up certain centers and then others and then others. So I think that my husband had a vision, for example, that he saw very clearly that it looked as though that the children coming in were having more DNA, or was it opening and using more DNA? And that he said, if we can do our job, they can do so much more. And I think that's what we're seeing. I mean, I'm just amazed and delighted with what I see with many younger people, what's going on. Another wave is coming, and you can do more.
It's so exciting. I see this because my daughter's she'll be 23 actually tomorrow. I see her generation coming in, my 40s. I was like, our generation started a little bit, the 60s, the 70s did, and then the 80s, 90s. But then it's like I just see generation and even younger than that coming in, and they're not putting up with the same things that have been taught. They've been taught. They're like, there's a better, higher way. And I feel like there may be some older souls that are something coming in, and they're like, we're bringing back more light, and you have such clarity. It's gonna stop eventually. I think we're all gonna come back into the same consciousness.
Yes, because
Have to.
we're going to have to, because the left brain is now committed to just doing whatever they can. Wisdom or maturity means that you can see something scientifically that you could do. Yes, we can do that. But they choose not to do it because they see that it will not be good for the earth. We have these left brain scientists who are saying, well, we do it because we can do it. And they see, like with AI, that it could destroy the human species, and yet they do it anyway. So this is the lack of context and maturity and intuition, left brain, heart consciousness. So yes, I think many of these people are seeing a minute. And I think there are choices, many, many choices made on the other side to come in and do this. And we also know, my husband and I, after the death of our son, we had many visions with him and with the other side. And he wanted to tell us, he didn't want to inform us, he wanted to say, remember why you came. And he was showing that there was an energy field. In fact, it was through the I Ching that he had my husband go to the I Ching. I had already had a very powerful vision of that, but they were called the Masters of Light. And all around the world, they have this serpents of light, lords of light, shining ones, and so on. But we realize that they are coming in, and that this, and it creates a completely new energy field so that we can do work easier than we could before, because it's a higher frequency now. And so that's why my book is called Merchants of Light, because they've been on the earth in other Renaissance periods. I think that I was so happy to hear the other day a scientist say, yes, the frequency of the earth is higher now. And I thought, oh, that's good. We knew that, but it's great to hear it from science. So I think that not only are these souls coming in who are saying, I'm not putting up with that, because they're not brainwashed at this point. And then we have the frequency that helps us. And I also think that there are many souls from the other side who are working from the other side, many who are being born, obviously, into this. And if we don't make it, I don't even want to think that, we have the pathology of those who stayed with the left brain, which can destroy the entire species. They want to transhumanize us, merge us with the machine. And many people in Silicon Valley feel that species has had its time. It didn't work. We need something new, and we'll make it. This is very dangerous. And that's why we need to do our work as thoroughly and as heartfelt as we can.
It's taking the technologies. I think it's the technologies can be great if they're used for the right reason, from a heart-centered purpose.
Exactly.
It's like,
yes, we wouldn't be talking if it were.
I mean, it's like people are like, oh, no, anti-technology. Like, you can't be anti anything. I don't think you have to know how to use it purposely for the right purpose and the right heart.
That's exactly the point. And it's so important that we recognize that just because you can do it does not mean you should do it. We have to make a choice. People with heart consciousness would not do the kinds of things that are happening now. But for sure, there's so much technology that is incredible if we use it correctly for the heart, for the soul of the planet, for all people, for the development of all people.
Yeah. I feel like we're having so much information type stuff, like sphere is like opening up so fast for us. It's kind of like we don't really know what to do with it.
That's true, and I find that every day. I just feel like I need a few more lifetimes, But I think we have to make choices, and I'm making choices. It used to be that I'd see on the email, "Oh, I'd like to read that," and I think, "Wait, I don't have time for that. I'm going to do this," and I just nuke it. I have to, otherwise, I'd be overwhelmed.
It's like you have to make conscious decisions on that. Talk to me a little bit about the survival of consciousness beyond the physical death and the evidence that's supporting it.
Yes, well, I think now that we can say that there is enough evidence that we can't question that anymore. I mean, for sure, consciousness survives, and we would never have been in this horrible worldview that there's nothing but matter, there's no meaning, no purpose. We're a fluke of nature. When you're dead, you're dead. That's been the Western scientific worldview. But that only emerged because the church censored the scientists. They could only study matter. And they did that because the mystics were their enemy, they thought. They thought that anyone who defied church doctrine should be destroyed or silenced at least. And there had just been a huge revolution of the scientist mystics, 1600. They completely wiped them out in 1620. We didn't even know they existed until the last century. Then there was the 30 Years' War between Protestant and Catholics. And when that was over in 1660, the Royal Society for the Advancement of Science was established. And everybody in that knew by that time there'd been so much death and censorship that they could study nothing but matter. And so we ended up with this horrid worldview, which is lopsided, obviously. And now we're finding out that it was incorrect. But it was because of censorship. And we have to recognize that today we still have that problem of massive censorship, and that we must hold on to our First Amendment, because without that, we don't have the freedom to develop, to be who we are. And there would be many who have been trying to get rid of it. So it's so important that we do what we came to do, what we were born to do.
I know I was looking, something I saw, I think might have been online, that the current censored books.
The what?
Like censored books that are censored from the school systems. I'm like, these were classics that changed my mind, like the way that I thought in school. Of Mice and Men, like all these other books. It's like, it's just amazing to me how we're still trying to censor down, trying to create people into this box of what they're supposed to think and how they're supposed to believe. And it's just amazing to me.
It is amazing. And when I was teaching, there were those who were trying to censor, and same thing. And these books, yes. And it's interesting. Republicans have been trying to censor those. But much to my horror, the Democrats have censored the scientists. And during the last 4 or 5 years, they have censored scientists who disagreed with the bureaucrats and moneymakers who are calling themselves scientists. So we no longer, scientists are not running our country or the health or the medicine, because they are silencing voices that differ. And science can only exist if there's debate and dissent, and they have silenced that. And I am so sad to say that it's the Democrats who have done it. They have science doctors I know, scientists I know of, and they've censored their work. Amazon just completely censored one very famous doctor. There was so much opposition that I saw this morning they have reinstated his work and will sell it. And a lot of people don't know that's going on because the media is owned by the corporations that would censor us.
Exactly. What they want you to, what I mean, it goes back both parties. Used to be able to pick a, not in politics, but usually it's like pick a party based on this, to now it's like, I've been saying the whole time, it's like, he's in it together for a good purpose. And it's so sad how it's run by pharmaceutical companies now.
Yes,
Opposed to
and
the scientist.
that's exactly right. And the Biden administration, to be specific, unfortunately, censored anyone who said anything against Big Pharma's narrative. The official narrative, which was the government's, because it was Big Pharma's. And so this is sad. Democrats never took money from Big Pharma until they did business with them to get Obamacare in, which was a good thing, but not that they. So now they're weighted down with that money. And now the official narrative. California, where I live, a couple of years ago, even got a law through that if a doctor said anything to his patient about COVID that was different from the narrative of Big Pharma, they didn't say that, they said the truth, that's what they call it, but it was a narrative Big Pharma, would lose their license. Well, thank heavens there were people who just really, we got rid of it. But that's where they want to go, so that they run the show, not the doctors. So we just, we have to be aware of it and also remember the power of the light. And we want these people who are doing these crazy things, these pathological things, they're pathological because it's what they've been given. Those are the stories. They were given the story of matter, nothing but nature's dead, exploit it. Those are the stories they got. And we want them to be healed too and know and know through experience that there's another story. And then they wouldn't want to, if you're healthy, you don't want to own the world. You don't want to control everybody. You want them to be who they are.
Right.
And, we now know that the person who's dominated by the left brain, that behavior of domination and control is the same behavior of the schizophrenic. We now know that scientifically. So we really have to recognize that people who are pathological are trying to rule the world. And our heart needs to hold them and hope that we can give a story that can even heal them as well as ourselves.
It's kind of what it takes every single person to just start shining the higher the higher the vibrations, the higher consciousness, and it starts to push some of that out. Because people, I think, innately are attracted to light, let alone
exactly.
They just don't know the difference of it. So
it's true.
Yeah. Would you consider the left brain to be the masculine side, and then the right brain to be more feminine side? That's how I've heard it approached.
Well, there's a reason for that, but Ian McGilchrist is a British author who's just written an amazing book on the master and its emissary. And so, no, the master is, of course, the right brain that's connected to the heart. The emissary is the left brain that goes out and does things, as I've described before. And he says, no, the left brain is not masculine. No, the right brain is not feminine. But as a mythologist, I would have to say, the left brain has always been symbolized as the male, and the right brain and the heart has always been symbolized as feminine. Of course, Christ always has the heart, but we have each woman and man has male and female within them, obviously. So, yes, I mean, it's symbolized in that way, but we can't think that just because a man is a man, he's going to be all left brain, because my husband might have been more right brain than I was. But, and I didn't want to be that. But as a child, I had all these questions, a young person even more. Nobody was talking about it. And the only thing I could do is go to university. And of course, boom, I was hit with left brain stuff, and I was always looking for the other. So, and that's the case the world, the Western world, and now the whole world, is that we were all inundated with, this is the only truth. If you don't believe what we're saying in science, then, follow the science. Well, that's pretty limited, so I don't think so. Especially now that they've cut off other scientists, but it's always follow the left brain. Well, no, we're saying, wait a minute, there's something else, and we're not going to go along with that. Yes, the left brain is beautiful. It's good for what it knows how to do, but it is dangerous if it doesn't constantly communicate with the right brain. In fact, in the 1700s, there was an incredible theorist of language, Jean-Baptiste Vico, and he said that in order for the human being or the mind, let's say, to experience its own wholeness, there must be an integral and dynamic continuum of movement between the right and the left brain, the right and the left brain. As far as I know, he didn't mention the heart, but if you've got the right brain, you can open the heart. And so it's like never should one be cut off, never should one be dominant. But the master is the right brain with the heart. The emissary who goes out and figures things out and this and that must always bring its information back to the right brain.
Keeping the yin and yang, keeping it the polar, like you have to have, you know, it's basically you have to have all of it functioning, but you can't let one dominate over the other one.
And that's the real point. That's the bullseye. Because when that happens, we get sick. And we think the left brain, unfortunately, has the illness of thinking that it's intellectual. It's the only way that if you have to prove something, you have to prove it by the left brain standards. But that's, the left brain demands standards for what it works with. But the right brain, it's experience. When you experience something, you know it. You don't need the left brain to analyze it for you. You know it. And so that's a different kind of evidence, which they haven't been willing to accept. But today, we have both intuitive and mystical evidence, and we now have, with quantum physics, scientific evidence that there are other dimensions of reality and that we are able to communicate with in the quantum field. We're in constant communication all the time. We should not be cut off from the other side, ever. That's our heritage.
I kind of like, I don't think we ever cut off. I think we obviously cut ourselves off.
We cut it. You're exactly right. Oh, yeah, precisely. With this left brain nonsense, we cut ourselves off. We said there wasn't even anything else. I mean, when I was in university, it was like a laugh, a joke. I mean, you what? I mean, we didn't say anything because there was nothing but ridicule. So, yes, we cut our own selves off. And those people who thought, wait, this doesn't feel good, thank heavens, because we all struggled to bring this back.
Coming back. That's the great thing.
It is. And the wonderful thing is, and I show that in my book, Merchants of Light, and I discovered it, as I was writing, and I'm discovering it even more every day, that all of these traditions that were heart, brain consciousness, who were mystics and scientists at the same time, and were repressed, they thought destroyed, they went underground. And they have existed, and then they came back in the High Middle Ages, in the Italian Renaissance, in the Rosicrucian Renaissance, in the German, and now underground, but they were powerful. And I am realizing just in the last month, I've been reading some things, they were even more powerful than I thought. So that's been alive in a most intense way, and now they're really coming back. So I'm hopeful, to say the least.
To live in a robotic world, I feel like that's kind of where like the left part is like, you want to be a robot, just walk around, thinking all the same, doing all the same things. There's no way to live.
No, but there are many people, who think, and politically, I think especially, we are brainwashed so that people, good, beautiful people who want the same things we want, they really listen to the censored news, but they don't realize it is, and they really are supporting aspects that will destroy it. That's very big, and it's no blame here. It's just that we've been so brainwashed, all of us, and so to break through that is hard.
As you kind of said before, our every generation is making the difference, but it's just, again, so refreshing to see younger generation coming in and just taking stance, and they're so confident in it. I mean, they're just so they're so confident in the things, like from body image to all kinds of different things. They're just so confident in themselves, and they and they're really getting into the tapping into, I think they're very intuitive. They're tapping into the heart, like you said, the heart consciousness, and letting that start to guide the way. And I think get older and some of the other starts to kind of die off, not many people, but just some of the old belief systems start to die off. I think they're starting, to me is starting the part of the new world
And
to
it's so
happen.
yeah, and it's so important that they do follow the heart knowledge, and that's where their confidence lies in that, because otherwise it could be a disaster. And I think that they are. Uh, that's a wonderful thing that's happening, and I think they're guiding each other and helping each other. When in the 50s, I mean, people would say, "Well, why do you want to go to college? You're just going to get married and have children." I said, "Well, then I'll be a better mother. I'll be smarter." But and just the whole feminine thing, it was like, "Oh, well, I mean, you couldn't understand that." It's a kind of attitude toward women that had existed with suppression of women for thousands of years, and that was still very strong. But my father was born in 1898. You can imagine, that seems so ancient now. And he was older than my mother, but he never even had a thought in his mind that a woman could think in the way that a man could. I mean, that wasn't even part of his consciousness. And certainly my mother didn't either, so for sure. It's but it was always that we had to counter. We always knew, or getting into the university, or when I went to get my doctorate at University of California at Irvine, someone said, the person who interviewed me said, "Well, what are you here for? Women's study?" Because the women's movement was just beginning. I mean, all of those assumptions were always all around us. And so that was one of the waves, and there were waves before me, but still, I was part of the other wave, that we had to neutralize those attitudes. And the people today, hopefully will use that freedom to achieve the deepest in them, the deepest feminine, the divine feminine. Get in business, they want to do it like men do it. But no, there's a deeper destiny for the feminine. I mean, she has, or for the masculine, we all have the ability to bring the divine feminine into play in whatever we do. I met someone the other day who's had incredible visions about merchants. He realized, he didn't know my book, but he had a vision that merchants, the way we do business, that merchants is an archetype, and we've forgotten that archetype, and it has soul, and that business should be done with soul. It's just beautiful. That's true. And the same with the feminine. It isn't just that we can now get jobs, or we can do this or do that. It's that we have the responsibility to bring heart consciousness, and the men too, who can be in touch with the feminine
And every
in
man
themselves.
has it in them, if you're listening. It's not
That's
a bad
right.
thing. It's actually a very
Yes, just
beautiful thing, and I think it's such a more powerful thing in touch with that than the right masculine side, whatever.
yes,
The
just as we
hustle and the only one, the logic side. I think it's just so much powerful.
it is, and I think just as we have the beautiful divine masculine within us as women, it's our responsibility not to let that go flying off and arrogant and confident in the wrong ways, but to use it to support the right brain and heart consciousness, and just as men do. Yeah, it's a great destiny.
Wrapping up for our listeners looking for ways to tap into this right heart center, some tips that you'd have for them.
Well, I think that we have to have that confidence that you spoke of, to listen to ourselves, to know that first and foremost, we are all divine. We are divine. That's what our ancestors wanted us to know. And that we are all immortal. Consciousness continues. And that we are all creative. We have evolved on this planet to co-create with the universe. That's our destiny. We have those abilities, and if we will follow the inner teachings, the inner intuition, then we will take the right path. It's the Jesus of the Nagamati text, those texts were, of course, attempted to be destroyed by the church, but they were saved by being buried. In those texts, Jesus shows a very different Jesus. He said, if you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. But if you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you. And so we are it. We are all playing this divine game. We have what we need within us to be what we have the potential to be.
Beautiful words. Thank you for sharing that. How would one contact you if they want to get in touch with you? They find your books.
Yes, well, Kamlak website, KAMLAK.org, and that's the website. And you can buy books through the website. There are also many, many videos on both the miracle of death, there's nothing but life, and the merchants of light, the consciousness that is changing the world, and so many other webinars. There are articles. And if you want to sign up for our newsletter, then a chapter of Merchants of Light is sent to you. So, and so people can get in touch with me through that organization. Kamlak, is it .com or .org? I don't know. It's Kimberly's the director of it. But if you just put in KAMLAK, then you'll get it.
And obviously, all the information, all the links will be in the show notes. Also,
oh yeah, thank you. That's good.
Are searching that. So, thank you so much for sharing with us today. This has been very insightful and just, I think, heartwarming is the best way I could describe it.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. I'm so excited about the work you're doing. That's exactly what we need.
We're all doing it together. So,
absolutely. Thank you.